Okay, so this is video 2 of the Ibanez TMB35 bass guitar. I did the first overview review video of this bass approximately 2 years ago, and so I wanted to do a follow-up of 2 years later, how's it working out for me. And in the first video that I did, I had really high marks for this bass. I was really impressed with it and still am. It's a fantastic bass. But the one issue that it's always had is it has a lot of neck dive. It just wants to go to the floor like crazy bad. And so, but the thing is that since it was my first and only short scale bass that I ever bought, it did prove itself successful in the experiment that I was doing of would a short scale bass work for me, and also would a short scale bass work in a 5-string format. And since I'm a 5-string player, and I'm happy to say this bass definitely proved that that was a doable format for me, and that this bass works in a 5-string short scale format. But again, the neck dive was the only thing I was really having a hard time dealing with. And so, but since I was so happy with the short scale 5-string, it led me to that bass back there, which is the Ibanez EHB1005 SMS, which stands for short multi-scale, which is a 30 to 32 scale bass, fan fret, so that's why it's 30 to 32. And since it's a headless bass, there's absolutely no neck dive at all on that bass. So ever since I got that bass, it's pretty much rendered this bass, as well as a lot of my other basses, as it rendered them not used at all, hardly at all, because that EHB is just such a wonderful bass, so comfortable. The neck on it's fantastic, and no neck dive. But of course, that EHB is a much more expensive bass than this bass. When I bought this bass roughly 2 years ago, paid I think $249 for it, so 250 bucks. For 250 bucks, it's a fantastic bass. Now, 2 years later, this is March of 2022 when I'm recording this. I still think it's under 300 bucks, but there has been a recent price increase on it. But it's still a fantastic value. But again, I'm hardly ever using it anymore because the EHB solves the neck dive issue. However, how this bass still really works really well for me is in studio recording. Because of the PJ bass configuration, the pickups, I really like that. It works really well. And so this cheap little bass sounds fantastic. Actually, before I retired it on using it on the church platform and started using the EHB, and I'm actually kind of probably at some point going to take this back to church too and give it another run, because it is a cool little bass, and also because I got probably more compliments from this bass than any of my other basses when it comes to both tone and on the appearance of it. On my first video, I talked about this, what I called the toothpaste green, Sensodyne green paint job on it, which I was not too fond of. And still, I've kind of grown more used to it now. I like it a little bit more than I did when I first got it. But everybody who sees it is like, oh, that is the coolest looking bass ever. And I was like, okay. But what really surprised me is the people on the worship team, other band members say, this is your best sounding bass. We really like, that little green Ibanez you have. That's the best sounding bass you have. And I'm like, really? I mean, it's a great sounding bass, but the fact that they're saying that over Music Man Stingrays, the Fender Jazz, and the new EHB, this is still the one that they say is the best sounding bass that I have, and it's the cheapest one. But that just tells you how good a quality it is and how good it sounds. So yeah, in that regard, it makes it a hard bass to want to get rid of. But because of the neck dive, I really only use it for recording now, and for that purpose, it works fantastically well. So I have some ideas on maybe if I could change to some lighter tuners or something, maybe that could help out or what. But anyway, it's a cool bass still. Also seeing if maybe it makes sense to drill, instead of having the back strap peg here, move it up, drill a new hole here and put it in there. I don't know how much that would actually offset the balance any and kind of help out. But yeah, if I could just, if this bass just didn't have neck dive, it would just be the most awesome bass for the price. It's just, it really is a great bass. Okay, so what I also want to do is I want to give you some more sound examples from what I did last time. And what I'm going to do is, believe it or not, the strings that are on this bass right now are the original strings that came with it. And I've been hesitant to change them out because, well, the bass sounds good. You know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. So, but yeah, I think that I probably should change them. But the one thing to point out, if you do get this particular bass, the 5-string short scale, is that there's not a lot of strings for a 5-string short scale. So yeah, just keep that in mind. I actually I have them over there. I forgot to move them over here before the video, so let me go grab them real quick. Actually, I'm all wired up, so let me make sure I don't knock stuff over. All right, so these are the replacement strings that I got, some DR high beams, which I've never used before. I've always been a slinky guy, slinky strings, but they don't have slinkies in, at least that I've seen anyway, in 5-string short scale. This is the only 5-string short scale that I've found online with Sweetwater, which is where I buy a lot of stuff. Also looking at all the other stores that I frequent, I've seen nothing else other than these. So I was like, okay, I guess I'm trying this set of strings. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna do some before and afters. I'm gonna do some sound examples with the original strings on the bass. Then I'm gonna change out the strings. And then I'm going to do those exact same examples played with the new strings, and we're going to see how a new set of strings will see if it'll liven up the bass and make it sound even better. All right, so something else I wanted to show you about this bass is I took the tuner off on the low B string here on this, and I also took the tuner off on the B string on my Fender Jazz here. I wanted to see what the size of the tuner hole is, because one of the things that this bass is it's very neck dive heavy, and so I wanted to see if I could get some lightweight tuners. So I wanted to find out what size tuners it took. Now it does have this little, I'm gonna call it a spacer. I know there's an actual name for this. I think it starts with an F, but I can't remember the name offhand. It does have this little spacer here. If I were to take that out, But anyway, you could see it in there. You probably, I don't know how well you can see from this distance, but so this is a bigger size hole than on my Fender Jazz. And from measuring it, it looks like it's the 1/2 inch tuner size that this takes, whereas this is the 3/8 tuner size. However, with this little, like I said, spacer, I can't remember the name of it, it does fit 3/8 size tuner. So here's the original tuner that I took off the bass. It's it's big compared to the tuner on the Jazz. However, weight-wise, I was hoping that these would be lighter. I could get an idea of what it would feel like with other tuners on it. I was just going to temporarily swap it, but they're about the, seems like they're about the same size, so I'm not going to bother doing all 5 of them. But anyway, again, this is the one off the Jazz bass. That's a 3/8. I just have to take off this little section here and get the washer there. And just to show you that that's what size tuner fits on here. And then that'll screw in like that. I won't spend the whole time getting it all lined up. Just something quick and dirty here so you can see it. Appears like, hey, it works. And there you go. So I'm going to try that. The only difference, of course, too, is that you'll have to drill a different hole here in the back. Let me get right up on the camera here. There we go. Because you see you've got the 4 holes for the original tuners here. It's got the 4 holes where this one just has the 1 hole right here. And I believe, if I'm not mistaken, the tuners that I'm interested in getting are the hip shot, why is the name slipping out of my head right now? Ultralights. And I think that's the same screw size as on here. I'm not sure. But anyway, that kind of gives you an idea of what it would be like. I'm hoping that the ultralights will be lighter than this because I want to replace the tuners on this and see if that'll help with the neck dive. So anyway, that also to show you that, hey, you can switch out the tuners on it. 3/8 work because of the little insert here spacer, and maybe some lighter tuners will help it be less neck dive, and also might look a little bit more to scale for the instrument. This is a small scale bass and it's got this ginormous headstock on it with these ginormous tuners, and so it always has looked a little out of balance to me.